World of Warships Legends released a video yesterday that revealed the glorious upcoming debut of USS Vermont, which will be a legendary tier battleship in our game. And I just so happen to own the Vermont already on World of Warships PC, the game that Legends is based on. So let's jump over there real quick and take a look at this clip of the Vermont. This should give you an idea of what to expect. It should demonstrate sort of the calling card of this ship, which are its super accurate guns. We aim right at the citadel of that cruiser. The shells go right there. They hit the citadel twice, deal a bunch of damage from other kinds of penetrations, and the cruiser goes down in a dev strike. That is the calling card of USS Vermont. These are amongst the most accurate guns on any battleship in this game, and I think the same should be true of the Vermont on Legends. Here I've got a full match for you in the Vermont on the Islands of Ice map. We're initially taking a shot at this CV very far out there. The results are not going to be anything special or spectacular. That shot was half blind at max range, and the CV is turning away. But another thing you might notice is that those shells have not yet reached the CV. I've been talking for several seconds, and they still haven't. When will they? Now. So that's a long time for those shells to traverse the map. Now, granted, we did take a max range shot at like 24, 25 kilometers, whatever it was, but the shell flight time on these guns are exceptionally slow, which in World of Warships means this ship is quite difficult to aim at range. It might be less of a problem on Legends with the auto-aim feature, but still, it's something to consider. And before we get really into the meat and potatoes of what I've got to say about the Vermont, we should note that World of Warships Legends and World of Warships are two different games. Now, Legends is, in many ways, an indirect translation of World of Warships. There will be differences between what you're seeing here and the Vermont we actually get when it debuts in Legends. The most obvious difference, of course, will be the maximum range of the main battery. Here we can get that out well past 20 kilometers, but in Legends, pretty much no battleship can do that. So that will be one difference, but the general spirit or soul of the Vermont, I think, will be translated accurately when it debuts in Legends. So even if the particular concrete details of the stats are not one-for-one translations, we should still get a similar vibe. In any case, I think this battle should show you a realistic picture of what to expect from these guns, because while I think they are the most accurate battleship guns in the game, they aren't perfect. You're not going to be dev striking every single salvo you get, and also your aim does matter quite a bit, and I don't think my aim was necessarily on point throughout the entire duration of this battle. I also think I made some mistakes. There were some opportunities to shoot at the Vampire 2, the Tier 10 destroyer that's been hanging around in the middle of the map, opportunities which we didn't take. But one thing to consider about these Vermont guns, there are 12 of them. They are 457 millimeters in size, meaning they are 18-inch guns, slightly smaller than Yamato. They cannot overmatch 32 millimeter plating. They can overmatch 30 millimeter plating, though. And they have a high alpha strike. I think it's actually higher on WoW's PC than what we'll get in Legends. But at the same time, we do have commander skills that can buff that. And those types of skills are simply not available on PC. They don't exist. Now, this shot against the Montana, who just turned broadside, we do about 30,000 damage there with one Citadel. I think if we had led that properly and accounted for the fact that he was basically coming to a full stop, that could have been a dev strike. And I'm not just speculating on that baselessly. Stay tuned, and we will in fact see a dev strike against an enemy battleship. Very few other battleships are capable of that kind of thing. In any case, notice that we took an awfully long time waiting to shoot at that Montana. He was pushing in, his bow was pointed toward us, Could we have shot into his massive superstructure and done a lot of damage? Of course. But this is a 40-second reload on these guns, which I think is a balancing factor that is necessary. So oftentimes I find myself waiting for the opportune moment, that broadside, before I actually send the salvo. And that's one weakness of the Vermont, is that exceptionally long reload on the main battery guns. I don't think any other reload even comes close to touching that. The other downside is the hull. While the guns are fantastic, the platform on which they sit is at best questionable. You saw all the damage that I took there from all of these enemy ships that are pushing in. A lot of that was AP pens, some HE pens as well. The Vermont is a gigantic hulking brick. It is huge. And if you've played Legends or you've played WoW's PC long enough, you know having a large ship is not necessarily an upside. It's more of a liability because it means you're a bigger target. And add on top of that, we've got a massive superstructure that pretty much anything and everything can pen for damage, much like a piñata sitting on top of this hull. And then the armor plating on the sides and on the deck is 38 millimeters. Now, that is a pretty significant value because it does offer you a good deal of protection. And the likes of Yamato out there, who you'll notice as we're shooting at him, we are specifically aiming for that cheek weakness, and the shells are actually hitting right in that cheek area. We just have yet to find the citadel, I think mostly due to the fact that we are actually aiming a little bit too high when we send these salvos. But the salvos that do reach him are penetrating for pretty excellent damage, including this one from only the rear turrets, which is going to do something like 10k. Anyway, the 38mm armor plating on the Vermont, that offers it some resistance against high explosive shells from smaller guns, like, say, 203mm cruiser or 8-inch guns. Those can pen over 32mm of armor with their high explosive, but I don't think they can pen 38. So theoretically, you've got some resistance against certain HE spam from that. And you've got some ability to tank as well. Yamato can famously overmatch 32mm of armor, so it can overmatch the bow and stern plating of the Vermont. But if we're presenting an angle with the side armor, the shells should bounce. However, if you take a close look at the shapes of the ship and sort of examine the geography of the armor, you'll see that there are a lot of flat, exposed surfaces that I like to call shell catchers. These are surfaces that are at awkward angles, and no matter how you've got the ship situated, those surfaces are going to be in some way broadside to the enemy or flat to them. And so when their salvos come at you and make contact, they will hit those surfaces of armor, they will penetrate, and they'll probably arm too, due to the thickness of the 38mm plating. And all that will really do is ensure that you take full AP penetration damage instead of overpens or something like that. Basically, this ship is not really all that tanky. So the armor, the hull, bit of a liability. The reload, very long, a bit of a balancing factor, I would say. And then another thing is, as you can see, this is sort of like a fantasy ship of what would happen if the American Navy wanted to continue building battleships in sort of the same vein as the dreadnought-style ones, like Colorado, New Mexico, all those kind of ships. This is sort of the final form of that idea of battleships in action. So as such, it's not very fast. I think we can reach a top speed of 26 knots in this game, but that is only because of the speed flag, which gives us, I think, a 5% bonus, and then a skill that you can get in this game called Brisk, which increases battleship speed by, I think, 10% when you're not spotted. And that gets us up somewhere toward 26 knots, which is exceptionally slow. for ships at higher tier. So positioning in this ship can be a problem, and if you push in, well, oftentimes there's no escape. But here is the main reason I wanted to show you this game. The Bungo comes around the corner 11 kilometers away, and, well, most battleships are not going to be able to do 50k with just their front guns, much less dev strike that Bungo with all 12. Now, of course, that is a nice salvo to get. 3 citadels, a literal dev strike on basically a full health battleship. However, taking that shot did open us up to a lot of damage from the Zhao, the Venezia, the Musashi out there, and we paid dearly for that maneuver. We're on fire too. We actually instantly DCP the fire because the Vermont's concealment is excellent. I think we've got a 12.6 or 12.8 kilometer detectability by sea. That is fantastic. And that fire, of course, extends our detectability. So the reason I extinguished it was because I knew I would instantly go dark if I did. Bit of a risk, but we were on such low HP that I didn't want to remain spotted and continue to be a piñata for all these ships. Shot on the Zhao, not great. Only 2 shells make contact. Could be our aim. Actually, I think that probably was our aim. But you can see this game is a little bit hopeless. There are only 5 ships left alive on my side versus way more than that on the enemy team. Everybody appears to have perished, so I don't think we're going to win this game. What we will try to do is take a shot at that Musashi's cheek. I was hoping we would make contact with the Citadel and take him out, but not quite. We do get 6 shells that penetrate for a lot of damage, bringing our total up to 246,000, which I think is a very good and respectable amount of damage, but we're going to lose the game. Nevertheless, I hope this video gives you sort of an idea of what to expect, or gives you a sense of the Vermont. And here, by the way, on the leaderboard, I'm tied for XP with the Austin on my team, which I found kind of funny. In any case, I hope this gives you an idea of what to sort of expect. I'm very excited for the Vermont to debut in Legends. Can't wait to play it. I hope it's as good as it is on PC. Of course, keep in mind everything you saw here is probably not the same as what we'll get when the ship does make its debut, but I thought some of you might be interested in seeing it anyway. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.